So I want to talk about how the breath can be used as a tool to help rewire the mind. So in day-to-day life, a lot of times, for me at least, I get caught up in kind of checking boxes, kind of going from task to task without pausing in between them. And this, at least for me, will keep me more in like an autopilot mode. And it also will kind of get me rushing throughout my day. Something I do, very minor, but just try to bring presence to the one task I'm doing instead of multitasking. And also in between tasks, if I'm like, say I'm doing this piece of work for an hour, 30 minutes, whatever it is, instead of rushing into the next thing, oh, I got to clean my car, I got to do this, I got to do that, I will bring awareness and try to breathe a little bit before going into that. It can help calm me down, but also bring a little bit of awareness to the present moment. So then there are several different kinds of things that different kinds of breathing that I will do throughout the day. So one is just the physiological sigh, which kind of really helps me calm down. So all it is just a long inhale followed by a short inhale and then followed by a long exhale. So it's like this. So that's all it is, and I'll do that throughout the day at times, and I'll do just a couple of those, whether it's in between tasks or some other areas I'll talk about in a second that are more than just like surface level things. So that's one. Another is just simply bringing awareness to the breath. So just doing a couple breaths is really important. Just 3 breaths, 2 breaths, 5 breaths, whatever it is, just doing something to bring awareness to the present. And then another one I'll do sometimes throughout my day is like an inhale and just hold the inhale as long as I can, and then do a long exhale as long as possible. And it just really, I feel like it slows my heartbeat down and just calms me down. So those are some things that I'll do throughout the day. So also throughout the day, the way that this using the breath can rewire the mind. So in Buddhism, it talks about basically the delusions of the mind. For everyone, it can be something different. So we all, as humans, experience a lot of the same things: jealousy, lust, greed, hatred, different attachments. All of these things, they are within us all, and they come up at different times, more so for different people. Maybe it's more anger for this person's more in greed. There's all those different things. And so using the breath can be useful in those, in not controlling, but in bringing awareness to those. I'll explain how I started on this and then also kind of go more into that in a second. But so for me, basically about 2022, in that range, about 3 years ago is when I started. For me, it started with some very intense mushroom trips. That was what started it for me, because it allowed me insights into my unconscious mind. And then from there, the meditation is what allowed me to continue on that path. So the insights that I started getting, so I had, just so you're aware, I had like very severe social anxiety, all that kind of stuff from the start. Very young, progressed with me throughout my adult life. I was I was unaware of the different patterns of behavior that I had and how to get out of them. So the mushrooms and meditation is what started allowing me to see deeper inside my mind and just see things so clearly, because both of those things are allowing the ego to become less involved. And once I started going on that path, I started seeing how the just like almost like things that I was doing day to day, how I was just kind of stuck in them and I wasn't trying different things. I wasn't like, there were all these flaws, but I wasn't doing anything about it. And so so basically what I did was with the mushrooms, meditation, all that kind of stuff, I started getting insights like, oh, I need to do more of this. Oh, I need to do less of this. I need to do this, all these things. And this was like a multi-year process. It wasn't some quick fix. This was like years and years of work. So what I started doing is I would get these whatever the insight was. So for example, one of the ones, so I was a special education teacher for a while, and at work I would experience different sorts of anxiety, this and this. And basically one of them was like when I would be in a meeting, I would have to leave these meetings, and when I would leave the meeting, I would walk out of the meeting and my mind would just go into this negative thought spiral. So I'm sure you guys know what like the thought spirals are, where you think of one thing and then it leads to another, and then it kind of leads to all these negative thoughts. And it's like, it can be things you're like self-conscious about, whatever it is. So for me, that's how it kind of started. And then I would just go down these thought spirals. It could last 2 minutes or 10 minutes. And it was just very, very negative. And so I started, one of them was just so when I would leave those meetings, that voice would kick in and it would start saying like, what if I should have said this? Or this person thinks this because I messed up on this part of the meeting. Or maybe this person's thinking this about me. It was all these kind of what ifs, shoulda, woulda, coulda type things. And so I would simply started training myself to, when I would leave a meeting or leave some sort of type of stressful thing like that, when I left, I would hear that voice kick in. And once the voice started kicking in, I would just do a couple deep breaths, whatever the breathing was that day. It just kicked in. I would do a couple deep breaths, and then that voice would become a little more quiet. I started doing that. That was one of the first things that I started doing. And then the more that voice would come on, trying to, the shoulda, woulda, coulda, fear of judgment, fear of this, all these kind of things, that voice started becoming quieter and quieter and quieter. Never completely quiet, obviously. But so what I would do is I would use the breath, and then basically what started happening is, after I was doing this day after day, weeks, months, when that voice would come on about judgment or embarrassment or whatever it was, I essentially, over time, when those thoughts would happen, I would instinctively start breathing. I wasn't having to it's not like I would catch it every time, but I would just instinctively start breathing, and then that voice, I would just almost bring awareness to it. It wasn't like, oh, you breathe and then everything goes away. Not like that. It's more so realizing that you are not all of those thoughts is huge. And so just breathing, observing, and then the more I started practicing it, the better I got at managing that kind of stuff. So then, after I would but get better at a certain skill, I would move on to something else, a different insight that I had, another one. And so also when trying to get good at, managing a certain part, like I was talking about, it wasn't like I just did that, moved on, and then forgot about it. That piece that I was doing with leaving meetings and leaving those stressful environments, that was kind of wired in me at that point. After practicing that for so long, that's still with me. When I leave a stressful environment and I'm being anxious about what someone said or this or that, I will start breathing instinctively, because after doing something like that for so long, it just is a part of you. It just becomes, and the more you practice, the better you get at it, etc. Another one was the fight or flight response. So fight or flight response, a lot of times, so when fight or flight kicks in, typically you will notice, at least I notice a lot of the same things: shallow breathing, heartbeat is going faster. Some people, maybe it's like feeling like their body's getting warm, like with blushing or all sorts of things. But like when fight or flight is kicking in, it may kick in on a very low stress thing, or it could be something on very, very high stress. But you can start noticing it kicking in typically by shallow breathing, heartbeat going faster, like those kind of things. So for me, in my childhood and throughout my life, that was going all the time. And so the reason the breath is so powerful is because I never really had a coping mechanism for that fight or flight that would kick in. I didn't know what to do with that. I never was aware that using breathing can help quiet that. If I had known that, it would have been a useful tool. And so basically, for me at least, when I moving on to something different. So with, walking in the hall, wanting to avoid a certain person, or, in a meeting and getting really, really anxious about this. Also in social situations, not at work, right? You're doing things in public, and you do something embarrassing in front of a bunch of people, or whatever it is, avoiding people, embarrassment, judgment, all those kind of things. A lot of times, if it's on the more stressful side, fight or flight can kind of kick in, whether it's the breathing, the heartbeat, stuttering, all those kind of things can kick in. And when those kick in any situation, using your breathing, like the physiological side, like I mentioned earlier, is very, very important to kind of calming. It's like the fastest way to calm your body down. And so sometimes, people will say like, oh, just be calm, or be less stressful, or, this or that. For me, it was always just saying those kind of things, like, don't worry. That never really did anything for me. I had to actually start changing my physiological state, and then that's what started helping me. So using the breath to change my state, and then that's when I started seeing differences. So I'm talking about all these kind of things more so with social anxiety that I dealt with, but also it can be used throughout day to day with all of the different things that we deal with as humans. I mentioned them earlier: anger, lust, greed, jealousy, attachments, all those kind of things. So what I think is useful is, once everyone has something different that they need to work on. Like, we all have different areas in our life where we need to put more work into. And like I talked about, those insights, whatever insight that I got, I would go at that one. And then I would move on to something else. And then I move on to something else, and keep continuing that. I went from different things with anxiety, then I started going with, I need to get off Instagram, I need to do this, I need to eat healthier, I need to, all these kind of healthy habits that I started practicing. I would use a lot of it was the breath, but also just using kind of like my awareness with it. So whatever it is that you are working on, it could be eating too much junk food, playing too much video games. It could be whatever it is, Instagram, TikTok, over consumption of something, whatever the dopamine seeking behaviors are. Whenever you know what the thing is, whenever you get the urge to do that thing, whatever it is, just once or twice, if you can pause in between doing that thing and bring awareness to the moment and breathe, and then think a little bit more clearly, like, do I really need to do that thing? Do I really need to go and do this? And breathe. Especially if you breathe and you pause, you will be able to not react as instinctively and impulsively towards it, and you're able to sit with it. And then you may still do whatever the task or the thing is, but the next time, you know, you probably shouldn't be doing this, right? You shouldn't be playing video games at 2 a.m. or whatever it is. You pause, you breathe, and you think about it. You pause, the next day you do it. You keep practicing, and over time, you will get better at getting the awareness of not going into those like doing impulsive things that are not good for you. So I talked about anxiety. It can be used for a million different things. It can be used for unhealthy patterns, like doing just overconsumption of whatever. It can also be used for reactions. So one of the big ones for me for a while was using in between. So I would be going throughout my day, and it could be something as small as someone cutting me off in traffic or someone doing something I didn't like. And then once that thing happened, I would react. There wasn't a moment to observe my reaction. It was just a reaction. And so I started realizing, oh wow, I'm reacting emotionally. I'm reacting with anger. I'm reacting with jealousy or whatever it was. And I would just work at whatever it was that I felt like at the moment I was really weak in a certain area. And I would, in between the thing happening and the reaction, I would start having a buffer, and that would be breathing and bringing awareness to it. So that's what I started doing. I know this is kind of broad, very, very broad, but it's kind of hard just talking about such a big topic in one video. But bringing awareness in between whatever is happening and then the reaction, getting out of autopilot, bringing awareness to the moment, and having making the conscious decision, I want to do this, instead of just reacting and doing it. I think that's important. Once you start doing this in a certain area of your life, it will also translate into other areas. You're just creating more awareness in your mind. And it's also addicting to when you start doing it, because you see results immediately. You just see the results, you see improvements. And so just going at whatever it is that you feel like you need to improve in, and going one thing at a time is also what I found to be useful. Instead of trying to work on 5 things at once, working on one thing, improving at it, then moving on to something else. That's what I found is useful. Hopefully this is useful for you also.